Which one of these Dave Rubin things should we mock?
Well, my favorite is the Elon Musk one.
All right. It's Matt's pick, ladies and gentlemen, today. Although the other one, for the C-SPAN one, it was so funny. It's like Dave Rubin coming up to the edge of like, we really need to have subsidized housing, subsidized, but he doesn't quite realize that he's doing that. It's just, the guy's so dumb. He doesn't make any connection.
But he's the perfect like caricature of a tendency that is really pronounced right now in this not a Republican, but basically a Republican propagandist sort of.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Outlet. Without a doubt. And look, this is where the money's made right now, folks. And if there's money to be made somewhere, Dave Rubin is going there. Moved to Florida to avoid an income tax. He's now, if you can imagine, he's now kissing Ron DeSantis' ass because that way people don't, his folks at the Blaze, his audience at the Blaze don't realize that he's married to a man and they don't think about it and that he's adopting 2 children. But here is Dave Rubin.
Community Q&A today, but before I get to that, I've been talking a lot about Elon Musk lately, and as I always say, it's like we shouldn't be doing hero worship with anyone. He is as flawed as any of us, but the guy is an individual fighting the system, and that is good. 1, 2, 3. There you go. That is good as far as I'm concerned. And it's not just that he's fighting this administration on inflation and he's actually building things like electric cars and rockets, all of that stuff. Even now, he is fighting within his own company to get people to actually go back to work. 2.5 years, basically, after the beginning of this plandemic, this scamdemic, whatever you want to call it, this COVID nonsense, there are still a tremendous amount of.
That's one thing just to pause on. Like Dave.
Plandemic, scandemic.
Yeah.
First off, over 1 million Americans died. Over 1 million Americans and are still dying. And we're not even in the next wave that's about to hit the rest of the country. The Northeast is now sort of like leveling off. More kids died this past year from COVID than they ever do on an annual basis with the flu, incidentally. We still have people getting very ill in this country. Many people dying. People who are immunocompromised. It's getting harder and harder for them to basically maneuver in society because you don't even have like optional mask places. But
how does a billionaire, how does one of the wealthiest people, if not the wealthiest people on the planet, fight the system?
I love
He's
that.
fighting the system.
They're literally the most. He is the creature of the system.
He's fighting the government and his own workers. That's the system.
The system
Exactly.
are his workers.
Fighting the system that would possibly, in any possibly context, provide more for the workers. But here.
Keep going.
2.5 years, basically, after the beginning of this plandemic, this scamdemic, whatever you want to call it, this COVID nonsense, there are still a tremendous amount of people that are basically only working from home because often they're not working, doing everything through Zoom. We know this is crushing creativity because when you're actually in a room with...
Pause it. Incidentally, this mofo has done his show from his garage, at least when he was in LA, for whatever, the past 8 years. He's been working at home.
Going to the studio, Dave.
Yeah.
Doing everything through Zoom. We know this is crushing creativity because when you're actually in a room with someone and a bunch of people, you might have a better chance through a little bit of human interaction and reading people's faces and actually being there and the tension of being with people, that it might actually burst forth new ideas and everything else instead of just keeping everyone in little boxes. So the guy wants his people back in the office and he's laying down the law. And I thought this was super interesting. Here we've got some info from the New York Post. Elon Musk ordered Tesla staffers back into the office full-time on Tuesday and invited employees who weren't happy to pack up and pretend to work somewhere else. In a terse email sent to corporate Tesla staffers, Musk wrote that anyone who wishes to do remote work must be in the office for a minimum, and I mean minimum, of 40 hours per week or depart Tesla. This is less than we ask of factory workers. If there are particularly exceptional contributors for whom this is impossible, I will review and approve those exceptions directly,
What?
Musk added. Moreover, the office must be a main Tesla office, not a remote branch office unrelated to the job duties. Screenshots of Musk's email circulated on Twitter Tuesday in response to a Twitter user who asked Musk for his response to any Tesla employees who think in-person work is an antiquated concept. Musk once again bashed remote workers. They should pretend to work somewhere else, Musk said. You know, the reason that I think this is so great is not that people cannot work remotely and not that certain people have health issues or other concerns or everything else, but all of this has led to a serious breakdown of society at so many levels. You know, after traveling a lot over the last 2 months on tour,
All right, pause it for one second. Pause
major
it for 1 second before he tells his stupid story here. What was this from last week? Tesla pauses hiring. Says Musk says he needs to cut staff by 10%. Okay, so just think about what Elon Musk has in the news over the past 2 weeks. Just say 2 weeks. They need to cut 10% of their staff. They're having like now maybe class action suits are brewing because a bunch of their self-driving cars just seem to stop on their own. I mean, you sold self-driving cars, not self-stopping cars. And also, he knows that he's in this hot water about Twitter. What better time for this effing idiot to make this about his workers? The problem is they're not coming into work. That's why our stock have dropped so precipitously.
Yeah,
That's
come
why
into
we've had
work so I can segregate you by race and continue to call you racial epithets.
What he says there, he says that's less than we ask of factory workers. What Tesla asks of factory workers is that black employees do the hardest jobs and have really racially, I mean, just epithet sort of station names. Like, I mean, I don't even want to say them.
Yeah,
Go to the LA.
Yeah. You guys can
Times.
look that up.
Yeah, like that's what they ask the factory workers to put up with.
But here's a dumb story. But I've been traveling around, and I've really noticed.
Has he been traveling around? Because to our point earlier,
Well, he moved.
He traveled
moved
from
to Florida.
California to Florida. He's been really road tripping. He's like Forrest Gump doing his run across the country.
I'm sorry, but I've been going to a bunch of live shows, which have sadly only been 1/3 fill because my fan base found out that I'm not straight and that I'm adopting kids, and that's an abomination against Christ. And I'm also not Christian yet, but you can convert. Anyways, I've been traveling around, and here's what I found out.
so many levels. You know, after traveling a lot over the last 2 months on tour and going to major cities, Chicago, Denver, New York, etc., and seeing the midtowns of these cities that once were humming and jam-packed all the time, and you'd see people everywhere in restaurants and people on sidewalks and all that stuff, to see the sort of urban decay that's going on in all of these places is pretty awful. It's awful for a city, it's awful for a society, it's awful for our psyche, which is perhaps why so many people feel so disconnected with everything. The other part that I think about, that I think is so great about this, is that he's saying the buck stops with me, right? Like, we don't have enough people in society these days who are like, enough is enough. Enough is enough. We had 2.5 years of this, and now we're going to get back to normal. Not a new normal. How about the old normal? It was pretty good. We're going to get back to that. And that he's saying he personally will review the cases if people really feel they cannot go back to office. And he's just making no excuses. We're in an endless time of excuses and nonsense and that slow descent to hell. And he's just saying enough is enough. And I think that that is absolutely fantastic. And that's all I think about that. All right, let's...
I think it's so important to say enough is enough. Like, who put COVID in charge? Who died and put COVID in charge? I mean, aside from those millions of American and, well, millions around the world, but the pandemic was fake in America, except for, and they tell us that it's happening in China too, but that of course is fake.
I like how all these
That's all I wanted to say about that.
these urban places that these sorts of guys care so much about the vibrancy of that they never go to. Like, yeah, do you think people just wanted to give that up and were like, oh yeah, let's just follow
No.
Fauci? Or maybe it's because a million people died.
It's so liberals can control you. I don't understand. Again, this like they seem to have abandoned the bioweapon thing, but it's both a bioweapon and it's also planned and not real. And, and if
it
it
drives
is,
me crazy.
and if it is real, it's just a cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Simultaneously, it was a lab leak intentionally to bring America to its knees, and also let everybody get it because it's just a cult.
Right? Yeah.